Hi, I'm Ludwig, and I got sued by Nintendo. It actually happened a few months ago, but I feel like it's worth bringing up now because of some huge drama and updates that have come out of the Smash scene. And even if you're the most casual of Smash fans, it's worth knowing about because this could change Smash as we know it.
Okay.
Or it couldn't. But let's get into that in a little bit. First, back to me getting sued. It was technically a notice of infringement of intellectual property.
Wow, I could have never expected this from Nintendo. They're just full of surprises.
And I'd show you the paperwork and verify it, but they did post my address in like ink in the background of every single piece of paper in this notice of infringement.
Yeah.
So I can't actually show you. But to my very, very small understanding, I am a YouTuber after all, it's basically like a baby cease and desist. Because rather than saying, hey, you must stop and never do this, they were like, hey, you must stop and then follow our rules. You cannot use your rules. Now, what was the big rule difference? Well, basically comes down to modifying the game. If you don't know, I ran an event this past few months this year called the Ludwig Championship Series. It was a pretty damn big Smash Invitational with an open qualifier. And up to this point, some context, there is a stage in competitive Smash Melee called Pokemon Stadium. This is what
I love this stage.
Looks like. And in it, it has different transformations, right?
Yeah.
It can look like this with a couple of big old platforms. It can look like this with a big old windmill you can stand on. And over the past couple of years, people figured out they could modify it and freeze it. So it basically always looks like this. And that was it was basically less luck involved because some stages and transformations are good for other characters and not so good for other characters. And Nintendo was like, hey, we don't like when you modify our game. Please do not modify our game. So I didn't. I didn't do that.
Which I think that's kind of fair. Like, in my opinion, I think that if you buy a game, you should be able to mod it however you want. Because you purchased the game. Now, you own that. You can do what you want with it.
And instead, we left the transformations on. We kept it vanilla Melee. And it actually, you might be thinking to yourselves, this shouldn't matter. It's like such a small thing. It actually determined the winner of my entire tournament. Because Leffen was losing very badly to Cody Schwab. He had 110%. Cody had 14%. The transformation came up. Leffen, using the back wall, got a huge combo. Ended up beating Cody, ended up winning the tournament against Zane. So it literally determined the winner.
Okay.
Not that that's a huge problem because it was honestly really hyped to watch, but when there was a poll done in a Reddit afterwards, people were like, we want it frozen. We can't have it frozen, kiddos. It's not how it damn works because Nintendo doesn't want their game modified. And I'm allowed to talk about this now because they have been very forthright about all the things you must follow if you want to run a Smash event. In fact, they dropped...
That's surprising.
A guideline, a community tournament guideline for every region. It first started with like Japan, then they dropped one for EU, and then they dropped one for America and Australia. And we're going to go...
At least they're doing this and not just shutting them down. I think this is kind of a positive. Not being able to modify a game you own is very anti-consumer. Oh yeah, I think so. You can't without licensing agreements if you make a profit from it from a corporate POV. So if you're making a profit from it, then maybe you can't modify it. I think that's kind of fair. I don't know. I'd have to really think about that. Yeah. That's the law. Oh, no, I'm not talking about the law. No, I'm just saying, like, what do I think is fair? Who cares about the law? You just follow the law. Yeah, you have to follow the law. But I'm just saying, like, what I think is fair or not fair. Guidelines are so oppressive, it might as well be shutting them down. We'll see. But you don't own games anymore? You own the right to play them until the company says otherwise? Yeah, well, I just don't think it should be like that. I don't think they should be able to do that.
Through this guideline today because a lot of people were reacting and in part overreacting to this guideline, thinking this could be the end of Smash tournaments as we know it. So let's take a look at these guidelines, which include in part that idea of not modifying the game, but then many, many more interesting things. So there's basically two things you have to think about here. The first one is community tournaments, which is basically like, hey, I want to run a tournament at my college or with my friends or in my local community. And if you do that, you're supposed to do these things. Like you can only have a tournament up to 200 participants in person, 300 online. You aren't allowed to collect more than $20 per person for like a tournament fee.
Okay.
You can't have a prize pool of more than $5K. Just outright. You just can't do that. You can't make more than $10,000 if you're a tournament organizer. I don't agree with all these outright. I don't think that, for example, a tournament organizer.
I think the reason why Nintendo is doing this, so like I don't know, I'm just guessing. But I think the reason why they're doing this is that they don't want Smash to be an esport, because they don't want people to play the game and be super sweaty at it, because then it won't be a casual party game anymore. That's what I think their goal is with Smash. But I don't know.
Should necessarily only make 10K. I would feel fine if my local tournament organizer was able to make a full-time living and then provide better tournaments, because they don't have to do a job and then a side hustle that's a passion thing where they're not allowed to actually make money. I feel like that's a little weird. There's also a couple of weird specific rules that they threw in. Like they went into this very, interesting rant about how you're allowed to technically have more than 200 people at a tournament if you do them in blocks, and the blocks happen on different days. And then they also go into details about if you wanted to run a charity event at a high school. So a lot of specificities, but a lot of people are probably wondering, well, Ludwig, what happens if I want to run a huge event? Or if one of my favorite tournament organizers wants to continue to run their huge 1,000...
And this is the way it is at Blizzard. Like, there are, like, rules like this for Blizzard for setting up tournaments, and if you want to give out a prize pool that's over a certain amount, you do have to actively okay it with Blizzard Legal. Like, I've gone through this process multiple times. Actually, no, not multiple times. I think I've done it once. Maybe twice?
In-person events with tens of thousands of dollars in prize pool. Is that able to happen? Can it only be 200 people? If 201 come along, is Nintendo going to come and shoot them in the head? No, not necessarily, at least. The way it looks right now is that if you want to run a large event, you must get permission from Nintendo, right? You must get a license and submit an application for license to use Nintendo games at your tournament. And if you get a license, then you are conceivably allowed to break most of the rules.
Well, you're not conceivably allowed to break most of the rules. The license is the rules. That is the license. Like they say, okay, you can break this rule, you can't break that rule, this is how it's going to work. And like you basically come to an agreement with Nintendo about what the new rules for your specific event are going to be. Duh.
The player entry rule, the prize pool rule, and maybe the how much you make rule. I'm not really sure about that one. It doesn't really affect me per se, because I lose so much damn money running Smash events anyway. Yeah. And they might not accept your event if you break these. These are kind of like the hard and fast rules, the Bill of Rights, if you will, the ones that just absolutely cannot be violated by Nintendo. They won't approve an event if you do any of these. If you violate laws, infringe IP, fake that you have a license, and then interestingly here, involve any cheating, unauthorized access, modification of the game itself, aka why they came for me, why they sent me that baby cease and desist. And then there's some vague things here, like if you use game consoles, accessories, and software not licensed by Nintendo. So I don't know if you have a Mad Catz controller, are they going to come kick you in the throat? I don't know. That seems like really hard to regulate by Nintendo. And there's an interesting conversation to be had about the box as well.
I think it's just realistically Nintendo is going to regulate it if it becomes an issue. Like, Nintendo isn't going to be going around looking for every single, like, negative thing that could possibly happen. But, like, if it gets very popular, then, yeah, they might do something about it.
Which is a whole nother can of worms I don't need to get into. But if you happen to follow all of these and you send in your request to Nintendo to authorize your event, then conceivably you should be able to run an event of really any size. At least that's the idea as it seems.
Not necessarily. I think that Nintendo would just you would have a separate rule set that you would agree on with Nintendo. That's the same with doing a tournament with Blizzard or doing a tournament with basically any other company. It's just how it is.
And Nintendo, that's at least what it seems, does have the right to cancel anything, right? Yeah. They can cancel any community tournament if there's 307 people instead of the 200 people allowed, or they could conceivably cancel any big event or not give them a license.
I wonder, like, is it good that they can do this? Right? Like, from like just like an opinion perspective, right? I feel like it's kind of not good that somebody has this much power. Like, it's too regulatory. Yeah, is it good for them? Yeah, like, is it good for the public that they have this level of control? I don't really think so. It's their product. Yeah, but you bought it. Shouldn't you have the right to do what you want with something that you buy? I think that you generally do. You bought a license? No, I don't agree with that mindset. I think if you buy a license to use the game, you should be able to use that license however you want. I think that turning everything into a license isn't just a get out of jail free card for removing all consumer protections that previously existed. Just saying, oh, well, you know, it's a license, so you actually don't have any consumer protection. I don't agree with that.
If they do not see fit. And to understand this all, it is basically Nintendo trying to capture back control of their IP.
Yeah.
And I think it's mostly for Smash Ultimate. In fact, if you look at the Japanese guidelines, they don't even mention Melee in it, the much older game that I care a little more about because it's a game I came from.
Yeah,
but in the
like
North
Melee
American
the
one,
most.
they do because they kind of have to because we forced their hand because we've kept their game alive for much longer than I think they would have liked to.
Probably true.
But in the conversations that my team has had with Nintendo, they've seemed pretty open to letting us run events. And they said that they would try to give permission for events to be run within a reasonable time frame, like 1 to 2 months. And that's the big concern here. Because none of these guidelines truly matter. Most locals will be too small for Nintendo to know or care or be able to keep up with anyway. So if you have 205 people...
I don't think this is going to shut down like a local Smash tournament. Nintendo's not even going to know about this at all. They're going to have no idea.
Instead of 200, they're not going to give a rat's ass. And then the big events, they have to get permission from Nintendo. And so as long as they give the permission, it's fine. Yeah,
sure.
We can't have Frozen Pokemon Stadium, but I don't think that is the worst thing in the world if we're able to continue running events for the next 10 or 20 years or so. And as far as that question, how quickly will Nintendo actually be giving out these licenses, we have a little bit of an idea because these have already rolled out in Japan. The applications to get your event license has already rolled out in Japan, and it's happened really fast. A Japanese Hokkaido local submitted their form in the Nintendo guidelines, and it got accepted in 1 day. And then one of the largest...
I also feel like if you're doing it in Japanese, it probably could be easier, right? For like obvious logistical reasons. Maybe I could be wrong about that. I don't know.
Events in Japan, Sumabato applied, and they got accepted for 10 events. The next 10 events are totally fine to be run. So it seems as though Nintendo's actually doing a good job of keeping up, giving licenses for their events, at least in the Japanese scene.
Sure.
Hopefully they follow suit in the North American scene, the European scene, the Australian scene, or wherever people want to play Smash around the world. And that's basically it. That's the update. So it should be fine as long as they actually keep up with their applications and they approve them. Things should be good. But we'll see. And I'll let you guys know if they're like, hey, Ludwig, we don't like that you're putting up a prize pool of $50K. Because that's where I'd be like, well, what do you mean, man? For these people are broke. They need some money. I don't mind doing it. I have a sponsor to cover it. Why not? That's where I feel like it would be crossing the line.
I think that's probably something that like a lot of these tournaments do worry about is like having really big prize pools, because whenever you have a really big prize pool, obviously it does create a different dynamic. And like I think Nintendo always wants their games to be kind of seen as casual, not esport type of games, etc. So I think that's kind of why they would not be okay with it.
Leave it off with a little bit of a quote from the GOAT,
You can take my controller,
Mango.
my GameCube, my CRT. I'll tell you something, I'll play Melee in my fucking mind. As long as Melee lives, I will play, and if you take it all, we'll fucking play in a garage. 20 people there, hot, sweaty, gross, me versus Zane behind a 7-Eleven for 25 bucks. And that's what it's always going to be. You don't understand that the money, the fame, nobody gives. Anybody who wants to be a top player gives no fucks about that. So if you try to shut us down, you'll never shut us down. You think you might, but I promise you with all my soul, you got nothing on the Melee community. So you can try. You're not going to succeed, whoever you are. Just remember that.
So those are the huge updates in the Smash
Probably
community.
true.
That's how I got sued by Nintendo and what it actually means. And I'll keep you updated if anything else changes. All right, see you later. Subscribe. Goodbye. See you later. Have a good one. Goodbye.
Damn. Yeah, I feel like Nintendo is like super overzealous with this kind of stuff, and they are like just massively fucking draconian. Like it's insane how overreaching Nintendo is. I don't even know why. It doesn't make sense to me that there's so much like this. There's the video right there. And it kind of sucks that like you can't even make minor modifications for that kind of stuff. But, you know, I guess that's how it is. So he never actually got sued. Wow. I mean, he got a legal proceeding by Nintendo. I feel like it's an implication of like, if you don't do this, we will sue you, right? I mean, I feel like that's pretty much not really getting sued, but it's a legal proceeding. It's close enough, right? Yeah, kind of weird that you buy a product and then they can decide what you can do with it. Yeah, I think it's weird too. I don't really think it's good for the consumer, right? The guy was just having drama with Tectone, made a response video and mentioned you. Oh, really? Oh, God. Maybe I should watch that. Yeah. What's this here? Feels weird, man? Yeah. Lamborghini and Porsche do that too. Yeah, it's just like, in my opinion, I think that if you buy something, you should pretty much have complete autonomy to do whatever you want with it. Like, there are some exceptions, right? So, like, if you buy a movie, you shouldn't be able to just record a movie and then it's a 1 hour response video. I'm not going to watch a 1 hour response video. It's not going to happen. You shouldn't be able to just broadcast the movie back out to the public, right? Of course not. Like, there are some exceptions because it's like actively why not? Because it actively competes with the product, right? Redistribution. Yeah, redistribution. But, like, other than that, I don't know. I think if you buy a car or a Lamborghini, you should be able to do whatever the hell you want with it. Like, it has nothing to do with the company anymore, right? They shouldn't have sold it to you. And I feel like, in general, like, why buy it? Well, I don't know. Maybe you want to do something with it. What happened to let the market regulate itself? People think it's abusive, then stop giving them money. I think that you're right about that. I do. But I do think there should also be consumer protections in place, too. And I'm saying, like, having the laws this way, like, the laws are written in this way. Like, in a natural world, this would not be the case. Like, if there were no rules, whenever you bought something, it was yours. That was it. You could do whatever you want with it, right? Like, these are rules that are they're on the books because of these companies. Laws should be written for me. I think the law should be written for the best interest of the public, right? Rather than for protecting the intellectual property of like a small group of very rich individuals. I don't really think this is healthy for everybody. Does the fact that it's a foreign company change the rules they have to follow? I don't know. But either way, I see Nintendo trying to regulate the Smash stuff because I think they just don't want their games to be like super sweaty games. I get that. But at the same time, I do hope that they're able to have some sort of agreement or something like that with these tournament organizers, because a bunch of people here love Smash Brothers. It's like I played Smash Brothers 20 years ago. Like, I like the game a lot. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like people just want to play and see tournaments for the game that they grew up playing, and like, what the fuck? It's not really that complicated, is it? I feel like it's not. So, yeah. Their IP, their rules, follow the rules for GTFO. Well, it's not really their rules, though, right? Because it's the government's rules. Because, like, why do you have to listen? It's not like Nintendo puts you in jail. The government does, and they do it on behalf of Nintendo. So I think it's really the government's rules. Nintendo doesn't have anything to do with it.